Hello, welcome to today's show. We're going to be talking to two people today, which is pretty much the format of the others, but it might not be for the ongoing shows. We've got Caron-Jane Lyon and Rowlston, and we're going to talk about all sorts of things. We're going to talk about digital. We're going to talk about live and the differences. Oh, I don't even know. We'll see. We'll see, won't we? I'm going to bring them into the studio, though. Hello, Karen. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. Very welcome. You're very welcome. I'm very welcome, obviously.
It's very exciting.
It's very exciting. I'm so excited. I don't know what to say, but I'm going to bring Jem in now. Hello. Hello, Jem.
Hello.
Look at this. I've got a whole different format to the others we were doing, but it's very difficult to get right in the middle. So I thought this is probably better for now. Who even knows? How have you both been, the two of you?
Yeah, good. Excited for both digital and live Fringe.
Yeah, for both, because you have got a show up and you've also got some digital stuff up and you've got lots of stuff up, haven't you, Jem?
Yeah. So I've got on-demand stuff happening right now and for the whole of the Fringe. Next week, I've got a live in-person show. And then the week after, I've got my come-down shows, which is back to online streaming, the place where I've been for 2 years and enjoying, and doing an actual live show just like this.
Ooh, but next week you've got an actual in-person, people in the same room as you show.
Yeah, people there, people on stage with me, dealing with the, it's not just going to be the case of going, oh, is the live stream going to cut out at any point? Now it's a case of going, is the audience going to get too enthused at any point?
And Karen, I think you've got a stream coming up about, what is the stream about coming up soon?
Yeah, I as a producer, I like, and a creative technologist, I like to know how all this stuff works so I can support creatives. So I've always tried to do podcasts and live streams, and Edinburgh's a great opportunity to go, okay, I've got August, what regularity can I do in the creation of content? Because that's the hardest thing about being a maker. And what I admire about makers is that relentless creativity and that compulsion to produce, and being able to support that and go on those journeys is a real privilege as a producer. I think it's, being able to find those pieces of work. So yeah, it's the opportunity where I take the bits of tech that I put forward as my preferred platforms and just make sure I know how they all work and get on camera and just do bits and pieces. So when people check out my stuff and I go, yeah, I'm a podcaster, there's actually something there.
But I think you're going to be talking about how to find stuff in Edinburgh.
I came up to the Fringe just before, just at the dawn of social technology. As I say, me and you, Elise, we've been around for that long.
Million years.
And it was still the paper program. There was no real website. And I, for many years, had to have that arrive in Edinburgh, be given the paper program because it wasn't sent to you, and having to have that 2 or 3 hours in my hotel, just working out what's on this year, what am I going to see, and how I scheduled that. So I think I saw 19 shows in 3 days is usually. So I'm going to kind of share a little bit of that analog journey of, let's look at the program and say, how do you find stuff? How do you plug in what you want to see? How do you fill the time that's got stuff that you didn't know you wanted to see, and how to make sure that physically on your ground you're in the right place to be able to get to the things you want to see.
Yeah, which you're sort of going to have.
Yeah, it's that whole compromise. And I think there's so many producers now, so many companies and Twitter just saying, what can you recommend and where can I go? And the shows that I know are up at Fringe for the first time, people I know are going back for multiple times. I know I want to take that journey next year and bring something to the Fringe. But I'm actually very excited about the free Fringe, because I think that might be my entry point to actually bringing something.
Yeah. On which point, I was going to say, the actual analog way of looking at the entire Fringe is probably going to be very pertinent this year, because they famously did not deliver the app that they were going to, whereas the free Fringe very much does have an app. Jem, can you tell us about that maybe a little bit?
Yes, so not to rub it in people's faces, but the PBH Free Fringe does have an app. And I mean, it's very basic, and we've actually been this morning had somebody write in saying how much they love how accessible it is, because we've kept it purposefully really, really simple. And you can find it on any app store that you've got. Just search PBH Free Fringe and it'll come up. And it's basically just the listings. We've got a map, so you can sort of, if you're on the ground in Edinburgh, you can sit and say, well, I'm here, find me and tell me what's in a radius of like a 5-minute walk or whatever it might be. But then you've also got right at the top of the app, the browse the online shows, which will link you straight out to our website, which has all of the links to all of the digital shows, just like this one. And it's very much sort of set up to be that mate that helps you, that sort of personal assistant that helps you, so that, you know, back when it was truly analog and you had the book and you'd sit there and you'd go through, oh, well, it's this time and I'll figure out, oh, actually that show, I'd love to go see it and it's happening in the next 5 minutes, but it's the other side of the city. Now this app is kind of filling that gap of saying, okay, well, you can just figure out what happens in the next 5 minutes right next to you. And then in those 5 minutes or 10 minutes whilst you're waiting, there are so many amazing online shows that we've encouraged everybody to do it on accessible platforms like YouTube and try and experiment with how you're putting it across and how the artists are really engaging with people. So it's something that you can truly do on the go, but also join in from home, which is super awesome. And there's a really interesting development on things like social media and Instagram, with everybody starting to sort of dip their toes into content. And how do we say, well, I'm a live artist and I've got a live show, but how do I facilitate that kind of, even in drips and drabs, getting out into the world?
Yeah, because I mean, TikTok's one of the sponsors this year of which I'm surprised at, really. Do you do any TikTok? TikToky person, Jane?
I love TikTok. I've been a long time stalker and consumer of TikTok and dipped into it a few times. But I've kind of, the thing that I love about TikTok and I'm discovering that I absolutely adore is I have that creative thing where I've always just got ideas and I want to turn around and tell you this and tell you that. But then, you know, on Instagram, on Facebook, there's all of these like best practice rules of don't post 1 billion times a day. Whereas on TikTok, they're like, to be successful, you've got to post 4 to 5 times a day. And I'm like, yes, I can just show you the neighborhood cat that I've just stopped and like had a moment with. But I can also say, I've just done a preview for my show and it was amazing, and this is something that happened and it's quite fun. So I'm very excited about the introduction that the Fringe might give lots of artists to TikTok and to this idea of easy content and easy abilities to make entertainment online. But yeah, I mean, I was quite shocked that TikTok decided to sponsor the Fringe, but at the same time, when I put my business brain on, I'm like, yeah, it's a perfect strategic move. What an awesome move.
Exactly. Karen, you're all to do with accessibility and everything too. What do you run? Is it the Equity Online branch? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, well, let's say the world of the entertainment industry, quite often we are on stage or we're on set when a lot of meetings take place, when you're socializing. I mean, you know, touring for a long time, I realized that all of my friends were just mobile phone numbers or are now, you know, just Twitter accounts. And if you're working always in the industry, it's very difficult to connect. It's a lot better now with social technologies. Again, I'm from an analog era, observing, you know, the advance of digital and seeing things come round and round again really quick, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that. But the online branch is about members of the union having a location in which to engage with fellow members and just being able to have a place that isn't Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, where you are constantly public, where there is a place that is held on a server which is under union rules and union observations to be able to go somewhere that's our own. And it's been a struggle over the years to kind of communicate beyond the bubble of inside equity, which we know about. But it is there, it exists. You can opt into it through the members area of equity. So you log on and you can look at your branches, and there's a whole list of branches. And what we have that's a little bit different from physical branches, because you're the chair of the North East London, are you not?
Northwest London. Yeah.
Northwest London. So I've tweeted you wrong.
Yeah.
Why did I think you were North East?
I don't know. I have lived in the Northeast. That's Sheena Govan.
I've got
who you're thinking of
there.
there.
Yeah. So so they've been getting your Twitter mentions then.
Yeah.
But the whole sort of uniqueness of the online branch is that we are in session 24 hours a day. So we are time zone agnostic. So we have most of our members are either in Europe. So we've got France and Germany members. We've got people in the US. So the TV type people over in LA, and theatre-y type people tend to be more New York, East Coast. And also we're a sort of a home for those that would like to go to a physical branch, but for access reasons just can't travel. Either geography prevents them from getting to a meeting and getting back sensibly. They're either working, so they're on stage at 7:30 at night. So we try and have meetings so that we can see each other, but we can do business about deciding and discussions using our discussion group. So we don't have to meet. So it's been very hard to let people know that, no, we don't meet. We can meet up so we can see each other. If we want to do stuff, if we want to be active, we can actually go into the forum afterwards and dialogue with all of the members that have opted in. So you don't have to be physically present to be able to participate in the online branch. And I think that's one of the, real genius things that equity have explored over the last few years. It's been a difficult journey. And it's going to be interesting to see where that evolves. But digital, for you and I, Elise, we've been at that early edge and sort of seeing it evolve, and it continues to evolve. And the Fringe is almost an epitome of what can evolve. The fact that TikTok is sponsoring, hearing people talking about TikTok, it's I explored TikTok probably 4 or 5 years ago when it was Musical.ly, and there was some really interesting stuff being done with transitions and video transitions, and then the whole algorithm stuff really scared me. But it's your fault. I have fallen back down the rabbit hole.
Yes, it's easy to get dragged down. What about you? What's your favourite platform, Jem? Is there one?
I mean, my favourite has always been Instagram. I've got a background, I came into digital from all of my family are filmmakers, and then I kind of fell into theatre and live events. And so this impasse where live and digital meet has just meant that, I am now a very digital person. But that also means that Instagram with the photography has always been my favorite, but rapidly TikTok is becoming the contender, just because it is something that you can get absolutely anything on TikTok. And it is the quick, like, serotonin and dopamine hits straight to the primal brain, which is always quite fun when you're like, you know what, I've got 5 minutes to relax. Let's soak the brain in some goodness. But I think as a user, I am now also as a sort of content creator and as a creative person, I am starting to form a very big love affair with TikTok.
It's amazing though. You go down the rabbit hole. 2 weeks ago, I visited Leeds for equity a couple of weeks ago, and met up with somebody there that said, "You'd love TikTok. You like TikTok?" And I was like, "Nah." And then 2 weeks ago, I went, I suppose so. I posted one video on New Year's Day and then forgot about it. Is that me? It's a sort of chewing sound. And then forgot about it. But then 2 weeks ago, I started doing it, and now I'm just like, I haven't left it. This is the little break I've got between looking back on TikTok again, really.
But I think it's also, TikTok has also been very, very smart in its creator tools. You know, it's something that anybody who used to be a YouTuber or wanted to be a YouTuber, where you've got to go and film and then edit, and the whole brand of a YouTube channel is meant to be sort of high polished and things like that. And editing takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And especially when you are an editor for your day job, you don't want to come home and make your own content and sit behind an editing suite even more. Whereas TikTok, you can do it on the go. And TikTok's content brand is what's successful on TikTok is that rough and ready. And their creator tools just allow you, the fact that you can hold your thumb there and then release and then press again, and it forms that cut. So you can literally go, I'm going to take you to every show today. And all you got to do is just keep that as a draft in your TikTok, and done. You don't have to go home and edit. You don't have to do anything like that. And I mean, their creator algorithm is awesome as well, where it kind of puts the music to, and it cuts to the beat. And it's just, it's incredibly versatile and designed to be integrated into your life, which I think is exactly where digital entertainment and digital tech is going, is just this complete integration, rather than sitting there and saying, well, I've now got to log in and dial up into something and make a moment of being online and in these spaces, which I think is why, you know, the equity online spaces are so forward thinking, because they help integrate that work side into your increasingly busy life, which is also why we were very, very pushing to keep the app for the PBH Fringe this year.
Absolutely. The thing is, going back to this, I'm aware that we're on YouTube now, and the algorithm for YouTube might go, "Why are you talking about that?" Because that has actually, the whole thing about TikTok has reinfused my desire to do stuff on YouTube, because I'd very much gone, oh, what's the point even? Because it went from having, in the early days, nice short content and nice punchy stuff, to like, no, you have to have more than 10 minutes, otherwise we're not going to put you anywhere because you're spam. It's like, what? I went to an actual meeting where I said, they're like, oh, well, we very much want to see how long you're watching a video. That's how we're going to do it. I'm like, what if your video is a minute? And you say that if you haven't watched more than 2 minutes, then I'm going to take this out. If you haven't watched more than 2 minutes, then you're saying that it's useless. And yet all my videos were 1 minute. They're like, yeah. So it's taken them like 10 years after that to sort of really.
Yeah, the joy of watch time. I mean, there's the whole sort of animators and people who make short form content. You know, it was a big change of YouTube. So yeah, the content tools that you mentioned, Gem, of it taking you on an editing journey. It's like the old times of Vine tried that, and Twitter bought it, and I don't know whether Twitter just hoped it would do something. It's like they had Periscope to do their live stuff, and then it never went anywhere. And TikTok, from what I'm hearing about why people like TikTok as a maker, it combines all of those kind of live edit. As I was a big fan of Audio Boo, and I tend to podcast on Anchor because then I don't have to show my face. And being able to do that live, being able to record, it's part of being a live performer as well. We're used to rehearsal, you know, production, rehearsal, perform, pub. Rinse and refresh, and do the end bit, and then go back to production. I like that continued journey of live, and you know.
But I think there's also something really interesting in saying, okay, these are actually opportunities, you know, and it's becoming easier almost to understand the function of these different platforms in our creative journeys. And so, you know, you've got your short form content for Instagram, Reels and TikTok, but then you can have the ability to be what would usually be dubbed indulgent in saying, I'm going to do a 30-minute video of like, these are all of the shows, and I'm going to sit and enjoy that. And I can use something like, you know, StreamYard or whatever to do it live. So I don't have to edit it, but you can also push that creativity. And I think it's also something that is it's becoming more and more inherent to the live journey now as well. You know, I've got a live show starting next week, but I've started with the content that's surrounding that months ago. You know, I've started really pushing that, and it's about thinking, okay, well, this is not just an obligation, which I think a lot of people feel like, especially with social media, because social media has become this massive, massive obligation of like, you've got to do it, otherwise you're never going to be successful. Whereas now, if you think about it, I always try and think about it as an opportunity as a creator, especially with TikTok and YouTube, that are content platforms, not necessarily social platforms, where I can say, okay, well, I've got this live show, but what are little snippets that I can put out? And what's that little scene that I had to cut from my live show that I could actually make into a 60-second TikTok? And wouldn't that be hilarious? And suddenly I've got this whole other can of worms as a creator to start really enjoying and playing and showing all sides of the thought process. Because I mean, we know as creators, when you're creating something, whether it's writing a book or just drawing a picture, there's always bits that you sit there and you're going, I'm gonna have to cut this. And there's always so much more thought behind a piece than what is put in front of an audience at the end of the day. But the opportunity that YouTube, TikTok, and digital platforms are allowing us is allowing us to have more of a creative journey, but also to get more of a relationship with our audiences as well. Because that idea that I can go to the Fringe this year and say, okay, well, I've got a live show, but then people who enjoy my show don't have to then wait for another year or wait for me to come to their town or travel. It's suddenly really accessible because now they can maintain that relationship and that enjoyment of what I do. I can benefit from that as a creator because I can say, you know, just follow me on TikTok or follow me on YouTube, and we've got this, and I've got a podcast and all of these different things. So if you enjoy me, it's so easy to find me. And then, of course, there's the big can of worms of saying, well, digital is actually making art so much more accessible because we no longer have to sit there and go, oh, that artist is only playing in Scotland this year, but I can't get up to Scotland for X, Y, Z reason. Oh, wait, they're doing a digital show as well. They're doing a digital version. And so you can sort of take part and still feel like you're at the Fringe when you can't be there, especially.
Well, the thing is, you said about the TikTok shortness, that YouTube's actually feeding off that and has decided to promote shorts all of a sudden and go, well, yeah, we do like short content now. But in actual fact, you can't get them as long as TikTok. Like, you can get 2 or 3 minutes. You can get up to 10 minutes on TikTok now. And YouTube's gone, nah, a minute's your lot. So it's like, in a way, they've gone, that's a good thing, and forgotten what, it's like there's not as much opportunity possibly, although they are pushing that, and I've noticed that they're pushing it more than the normal YouTube at the moment. So I
think that's all about adaptability. You know, like, these are ultimately their businesses trying to like vie for our attention. It's increasingly, thanks to TikTok, increasingly shorter, and so they're trying to adapt, but it also means that you can see it as a burden, you can see it as an opportunity, you can choose to not engage whatsoever. But we've spent the last couple of years in our daily lives becoming really adaptable, hopefully. And, going up to the Fringe this year, I'm sitting here going, this is my 10th year of doing this. I was getting to the point where I was like, I can do it with my eyes closed, both arms tied behind my back, and missing a leg. Whereas this year, I'm like, it's a different beast. I've got to adapt. And suddenly we're having lots of conversations about adapting. And I think that's the same in the digital space, is that these platforms are continuously evolving. Our appetites are continuously evolving. And even if you don't think about it as the digital and the new age, and that's quite scary for a lot of people and a lot of creators, we had to adapt before the internet existed anyway. We had to adapt in our everyday life as to, how our audience is going to react to X, Y, Z. Especially if you do comedy, all you've got to have is one dud audience member, and then suddenly none of the jokes land, and you've got to adapt how you're performing it. It's the same level of getting creative and saying, right, well, here's a chance. It might not fit with the original plan, but let's play. And I think that's how I always lead and try and encourage people in the digital sphere. And it's very much what we've done with the virtual free Fringe with PBH, is say, just play, right? We've spent 2 years making podcasts, doing live streams. Put it on, be proud of that work. Don't forget about that work, but also use that opportunity to play. Like, how does a stream like this, if you're taking a show up to a live Fringe, how does that fit in? Even myself with my live show, it's called Happiness Anonymous. And for the last 2 years, I've been running live streams and podcasts, and I will credit my father entirely for giving me this idea. He turned around and said, well, why don't you just have screens and stuff and a QR code outside your show whilst people are waiting so they can listen to the podcast and listen and watch the stream, because it's all part of the same kind of ethos of you've got a one-woman show. It's not like they're there to see anybody else. So I think there's a lot of opportunity in sort of saying, okay, well, what's the experience of digital, and what are we going to do here, and how can we be proud and play in digital and live?
Blending audiences, isn't it? I think is what the pandemic started to have that conversation. I mean, pandemic really hit in March. In January of 2020, I'd been streaming for 2 or 3 years. I'd been doing proof of concept projects. I'd literally vowed never to do another digital show because no one was interested in January 2020. By March, I made my tax threshold for the first time in 3 years, doing creative projects. What I'm doing now, and the contemplation of taking a live show to Edinburgh next year with a blended triplicate audience of a physical Fringe size audience, which is the audiences that I love. I love 80 audiences about I like that sense of, it's large enough for you to feel like you're in an audience. There's enough space usually in the entryways for you to be on your own if you don't want to be in a crowd, and you get enough crossover if there's a few people who aren't on board. You get enough energy. But then also extending that into a digital space and being able to enable people to watch, participate, and get that vibe of what it is to have a live audience present rather than just watching a studio show. And then the next stage that we've been given at the moment is that notion of having an extended virtual watch opportunity. I mean, there's theatre productions that are starting to happen in virtual stuff, but the audience, bringing an audience to be able to see these different things, so that if you see something digital, you might go, when that comes to me, I want to go there in person. So, TikTok and social media, it's just become a conversation with the audience you never knew that you could have, and maintain them as well. And I know over COVID, there's been quite a few companies who have found that their audience development was very difficult when they were touring, because the venues tended to keep that data of tickets. They didn't interact with their audience, and all of a sudden they're doing live shows and they're getting the email addresses, they're getting the engagement, they're building a retainable audience to build into a community. So it's been a gift, the pandemic, but it's been a generational tragedy as well. So it's a hard one, but digital.
But at the same time, on that note, I have found I've been working with community centres and arts organisations around the pandemic, and how can they digitize their stuff, how can they maintain their audiences, and there are some amazing organisations. Shout out to JW3 in London for really grabbing that opportunity. And what we found actually is that your assumption is that the older generations are going to be lost within this new world of digitization. The audiences that adapted fastest, the audiences that have also turned around and maintained a demand for digital, are the older audiences who have also sat there and gone, you know what? I only have so much energy in the day. I don't want to go and sit on the tube to go to a show. I don't want to have to sit and travel. I like the idea that I can be sat at home doing what I want to do with the kids, with the grandkids, or even, younger generations are really taking that, saying, well, I can still work, but I can still go see a show that happens at 3:00 in the afternoon, or watch an online lecture that happens at 3 in the afternoon, because I don't have to go and travel. I don't have to be absent from the physical thing that I need to be doing. So suddenly you've got all of these audiences who are finding that joy in the accessibility of how instant digital is. And yeah, I mean, the older generation might not be interested in things like TikTok, but there's a burgeoning older TikTok community, and I am starting to be algorithmed into it, and it's amazing, and I absolutely adore it, because you get such wisdom and such absolute whimsy from the older generations. But I think the nice thing, and it's one of the reasons why Elise and I vied so much for keeping the virtual Fringe as part of PBH's Fringe, is PBH Free Fringe is all about accessibility. It's all about leveling the playing field, whether you're an artist or whether you're a punter, and saying anybody can access this, anybody who wants to can, there are no barriers whatsoever. And the inclusion of digital, not only does that, especially in the time where COVID still does exist, and that makes a lot of people nervous. I'm nervous for next week because there is a part of my show where I invite an audience member onto stage. And I'm like, I'm probably just going to give them a mask because I'm a little bit nervous of what little germs they might bring onto the stage with me. But at the same time, people who are genuinely concerned about that or uncomfortable about it, or for whatever reason genuinely can't expose themselves, they aren't going to have to miss out on the Fringe. And people who couldn't get the time off work because we didn't know what was happening this year, they don't have to miss out on the Fringe. Nobody has to miss out anymore. So like the inclusion, I'm so proud that, you know, even if it's on the small scale and we'll keep getting bigger each year, but I'm so proud that PBH has totally dedicated itself to saying, you know what, it would be easier without an app. It would be easier without a virtual Fringe. It would be so much, there would be less of a logistical nightmare, but it's part of what we do. And it's part of the ethos of everything that PBH Free Fringe stands upon. So I'm very proud that the virtual Fringe is still going along, and that we can also have these conversations as well. Like, this conversation would never have happened if we, you know, hadn't stood up and said, actually, no, we're not going to choose the easy route. We're not going to choose the cheaper route. We're going to commit to this idea of saying, we stand for accessibility. We also stand for creativity. And there are some amazingly creative shows that are happening this year, and shows that wouldn't be able to happen anyway because the artists can't come to Edinburgh for whatever reason. So it's exciting.
Yeah, there's some amazing stuff on the virtual Fringe. So if you get the app, then you can see all the stuff that's in Edinburgh and all the stuff that for one reason or another couldn't be in Edinburgh, or stuff that people are in Edinburgh and have also got the virtual, very much like Jem. And I think there are Trudy, who was on a couple of days ago. She's also put some stuff on the virtual Fringe as well as having a live show. So everything's looking good. And Karen, you've got a stream coming this weekend, is it?
I'm going to sort of try and stream once a week through the Fringe. I've got Friday, so tomorrow I've got Joe Strickland from Chronic Insanity, who have 2 shows at the Fringe, and they're a Nottingham-based theatre company, but have been really treading that line between live and immersive digital. So they, just before Fringe, they've had Puncture the Screen festival that has run for a week, and a lot of the shows that they had were, you participated within the audience. So I being able to be audience, I think, with this digital, because in the physical stuff that I do, you're on the ground and you're producing, or you're working with developing projects, but being able to have the digital and immersive experience digitally, you can choose to be an audience member again as a maker, as a creator. And I've really enjoyed attending some of the immersive pieces. They had one where there was about 15 of us in the digital audience and about 15 people in the physical audience, and they were being told a story, and they had to keep the lights going. So it was this story about the obsolescence of light bulbs, which is a fantastic, horrific story, but it was good to hear it as a story. And they were pedaling, they had the audience taking it in turns on a push bike that was pedaling the lights on the set, and online we were the bad guys that had to shut down the lights and we were like playing a digital battleship with, so the audience in the digital were actually choosing which square we were targeting. And if we got one of the lights, then it took the lights down. And the whole thing was, by the end of the show, will there be any light? Will we have shut down all of the lights on stage? It was really well done. But it was a Fringe immersive, I think it was being hosted in a meeting room in Broadway Cinema, which is in Nottingham. So it wasn't even a theatrical space they were using, but this engagement. So yeah, I'm going to be talking to Joe about his stuff, and then definitely going to feature. I'm going to do a free Fringe app. Look at that. See the virtual. So yeah, next year will either be my show that comes to Edinburgh, or I think I really enjoy playing with the immersive stuff. So having something in the virtual free Fringe, I've got a few virtual venues which are being developed. So I may be able to offer you some venues, Jem, and we can do some free Fringe watch parties of online shows from the rest of the Fringe, but stream them as watch parties into a virtual auditorium.
You are making my dreams come true.
I might be able to do something for the final week. Let me have a look to see if I can sort something out for the last week, so we could do a VR watch party.
Let's talk. Watch
Yes,
this space.
All right, well, I'm going to keep you in the virtual studio when I've cut off the broadcast to everyone else. So we're going to have a big chat in a second. But for everyone else, enjoy your day. It's going to be a hot one. So if you're going outside, try to find places that have got a little bit of air coming into them, and maybe see a little bit of virtual Fringe stuff while you're at it. And go see Gems next week if you are in Edinburgh, and if you're not, you can still see her stuff because it's all over the place. It's on the virtual Fringe. And also tune into Karen. Have a lovely day, everyone. Have a lovely day, Karen and Jem, and I will see you on the other side.
Thanks,
That
Elise.
sounds terrible. Bye-bye.
Bye.